everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alex and today I am doing my October wrap up. Now, as you can see, things are a little bit different. If I'm gonna be completely honest, I did not have the energy to do my hair and makeup and do my whole setup and do all my stats and everything. So this is gonna be a super casual wrap up. Another thing, you might be hearing some noise in the background. My son is actually awake right now. Usually when I film, he is asleep, but he has decided that we might not be taking naps anymore, but I can't complain because he's sleeping later in the morning. But what that means is that he might pop in and out of frame, or he might be making some noise in the background. Just try to ignore that. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in October. I wound up actually finishing 15 books this month, which I was really impressed with myself. Did not think I was going to be able to get that many books read, but here we are. I did talk about 8 of the books that I read this month in my mid-October wrap-up, which I will link in a card up above if you have not seen it already, and I'll quickly give you the star ratings of all 8 of those books, and then I will go in to talk about the rest of the books that I read this month. So without further ado, let's get started. So first, really quick, I'm going to go through and tell you the books that I covered in my mid-October wrap-up and the star ratings that I gave them. So if you haven't seen my mid-October wrap-up, go watch it first if you don't want to be spoiled for the ratings that I gave these books. The first book that I completed in the month of October was Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read We Used to Be Friends by Amy Spalding, which I gave a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Next was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read A Dress for the Wicked by Autumn Krause, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. Next I read The Dream Daughter by Diane Chamberlain, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Vicious by V.E. Schwab, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I completed Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And finally, I completed City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So now I'm going to move on to the 7 books that I completed in the last half of October. So first, I finished The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. So this story follows a family. We have our 2 parents, Eric and Andrew, and their 7-year-old daughter, Wen. And they have gone to this cabin retreat to just kind of take a little vacation, get away from the world. And this group of people winds up coming to the cabin and essentially telling them that they have the power to save the world. So this is a horror novel. It goes on from there, and it's just full of suspense and paranoia and chaos. Now, I had heard a lot of good things going into this novel, and I expected really great things out of it, but I think I went in with my expectations just a little bit too high. While I did enjoy it, it wasn't quite as great as I wanted it to be. I didn't feel as much anxiety and paranoia as other people were saying that they did. That actually makes it a true horror novel. Hi. And overall, it was just kind of meh. I didn't feel that it was as suspenseful or horrific as it was made out to be, and I felt like the ending kind of fell flat for me. So this one was just kind of middle of the road. I'll end up giving this novel a 3 out of 5 stars. The next novel that I completed in October was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This follows our main character, Jason, and he lives a pretty normal life. He is a professor at this university, and he has a wife and son that he really loves. And one night he gets robbed at gunpoint and essentially finds out that his life is not his life. Essentially, this book just turns into a mystery thriller from there. Now, I had also heard a lot of hype about this novel, and I really enjoyed it. I listened to the majority of this one on audiobook, and I feel like the narrator did a really nice job. And one of the things that I appreciated about this novel was it is a sci-fi, but I feel like it was explained really well, and there are some scientific discussions and a little bit of jargon in there, but for someone that knows nothing about science or quantum physics or any of the topics that are discussed in this novel, I felt like they were covered really well. There were several plot twists in this novel that I feel like were done really well. The action scenes were really cool. The plot moved forward really nicely, and just overall, I feel like this was really well done. So I'm looking forward to reading more from this author in the future, and I'll end up giving Dark Matter a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I completed in October was The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This essentially follows these 4 different characters who all come together at Hill House, which is supposedly haunted, and they have chaos ensue based on these ghosts that are haunting the place. Now, I will say that I can definitely understand why this one has stood the test of time. It seems like just your perfect classic creepy ghost story haunted mansion kind of novel, but just in general, I didn't really have any strong opinions about this one either way. I did enjoy the audiobook. That's the way that I mainly listened to it, and I do think that was a good way to go. It definitely helped propel me through the story, but like I said, overall, no strong opinions one way or the other on this one. I wound up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Oh God. Mommy. Logan. Well, then don't do that. Please move. This hurts. The next book that I read was a total departure from the rest of my October reads, and that is The Little Book of Hygge by Mike Viking, I think is how you pronounce his name. Now, the subtitle of this book is The Danish Way to Live Well, and it kind of describes what this book is about. This is a non-fiction book that looks into the concept of hygge. Now, this concept of hygge is really popular in Denmark, and a lot of people and a lot of research has said that this concept is what makes Denmark citizens some of the happiest people in the world. And the feeling of hygge is almost like being comforted and warm and cozy and safe, and a lot of the way that Danish people live and just the way that they have their own lifestyles contributes to this concept of hygge. So this book tries to kind of break down that concept, see the kind of different elements that make up a hygge-like environment, and how you can incorporate some of those pieces into your everyday life as well. Now, I felt like this was a really interesting read. Hygge is a concept that I've actually been interested in for a while, and I feel like this book did break it down pretty well. And there are a few tips in here about some of the things that seem to make up a hygge-like environment, like candles, cozy blankets, warm homemade food, things like that. But it wasn't all just tips about how to achieve hygge. A lot of it was also just an analysis of the lifestyle of the Danish people and how these elements are impacting their life. So a lot of it is just scientific facts as well. So in general, I would say that this book is a good read if you're looking into more insight on the topic of hygge in general, but it doesn't have too many tips in there past what you can kind of drum up in your own head. It might inspire that for you. But overall, if you're looking for something, a quick nonfiction read, I thought this one was a good one. I enjoyed it. I wound up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The Unbecoming of Dyer by Michelle Hygge. This book follows our main character, Dyer, and at the beginning of the novel, she is in this abandoned asylum with 2 of her friends and her boyfriend, and it winds up that this accident happens and Mara is the only survivor, but she can't remember anything about what happens. So she winds up going through therapy, going to whatever to try to fix her, restore her memory, and they wind up moving across the country to try to get away from that. Chaos ensues from there. Now, I have had this book on my TBR for at least 5 years now, and I'm so glad that I was finally able to read it this October. I actually read this book all in one day. This was while I was on vacation in Australia. I had a really, really long flight on the way back, and I just finished it all on the flight. So this one was a really, really quick one to get through. I can definitely understand why it has retained success in the YA world, and I'm excited to get to the rest of the trilogy. And there's also a spin-off about the main male character, Noah. I'm definitely excited to get to all of those. The ending of this book was insane. This book achieved the perfect creepy vibe for October while still keeping like a contemporary feel. I just feel like there was a really nice balance that this novel struck, and I'm really excited to continue the series. I wound up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I finally completed Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Now, I'm sure that everybody already knows what this novel is about by now. I'm the last person on earth to actually read it, but essentially it follows our married couple, Nick and Amy, and at the beginning of the novel, it is their 5-year wedding anniversary and Amy goes missing, and Nick is being looked at as the main suspect, but did he actually kill her? Now, I had said in a previous video that I had no idea what this book is about and that I had never gotten spoiled somehow, and it just so happens that right before I started this novel, I did get spoiled for something. Of course, if you've read this, the twist that happens in the middle, I got spoiled for that, and I was kind of upset about it, but oh well, I still really highly enjoyed this novel. If you haven't read it, you get a mixture of perspectives in this novel. First, you hear from Nick, who is searching for his wife, and they're going through the investigation, and on the other hand, you hear from Amy's diary entries. I feel like this novel was really, really well done. All the characters were really dynamic. The twists were really well done. I was just on the edge of my seat. I felt like I kind of knew where it was headed, but at the same time, I was like, what's actually going on? And it was just overall so creepy and so weird. And even at the end of the novel, I was just like, my brain just couldn't handle it anymore. This was a really, really well done thriller. I can definitely understand why it has been such a staple. And I'm really excited to read more from Gillian Flynn and to see the movie for this one as well. This was one of my favorite reads of the month, and I wound up getting it a 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I completed in the month of October was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This one I had been reading very slowly throughout the month of October by using the Serial Reader app. Just got a little chunk of it, 15-20 minutes every day. And it was really nice to do it that way. And also I read this book along with a buddy read. Some ladies that listen to the Currently Reading podcast and one of the hosts, we all joined in. I think there were about 7 of us reading through this novel. And I'm really, really glad that I read it this way because otherwise I probably would have DNF'd it. I didn't really know very much about this going in. I had never read it before and I had never seen an adaptation of it. But if you don't know, essentially it is about this scientist named Frankenstein and he comes up with this monster and chaos ensues from there. Overall, I guess I just have to say that this was not anything that I thought it was going to be. If I'm going to be completely honest, the chapters that were told from Frankenstein's perspective, which is like 75% of the chapters, were really boring. And I only really enjoyed the chapters that were told from the monster's perspective, which was really unfortunate because I wish we would have gotten more from him because those are the chapters that I actually liked. Again, I'm really glad that I read it with the ladies in the buddy read because if I hadn't, I probably would have abandoned it. It wasn't my favorite thing in the world. I think maybe if I went into this maybe in a class where we were reading it with a more critical eye, that maybe I would have enjoyed it more. I don't know, but unfortunately, it wasn't my favorite thing that I've ever read, but I'm still glad that I read it and they get to check it off my list. But overall, I just gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So that is it for everything that I read in the month of October. As always, I will give you a little bit of a sneak peek into what I'm currently reading. So I'm in the middle of 2 books right now. The first one is a nonfiction called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. This is essentially just what the title says. It's a nonfiction book talking about how to talk to your kids and how to get them to talk back to you, basically. It opens up a better communication between you and your kids. Obviously, I'm a parent. I'm reading this because I'm a parent. This, right now, I'm about a little bit less than halfway through, and my son is only 2.5. So a lot of the concepts that are covered in this book aren't applicable to us quite yet because he is just not capable of the advanced conversation that's happening in this book. But I do think that as he grows up, these will be nice skills to have. So I'm enjoying this one so far. And the second book that I'm reading, I just started today, which is November 1st. I am reading A Curse of Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. Now this is one that's been on my TBR for a while. This is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I'm only about 4 chapters in, but I am really enjoying it so far. This was my first pick from the TBR Jar Challenge, which I mentioned in my November TBR video. I am, like I said, keeping track of all of my picks over on Instagram. So throughout the month, if you want to see what I'm picking in real time, go to my Instagram. The link is down below as it always is, and follow me over there. So that is it for today's video. If you have read any of the books that I mentioned today, let me know what you thought of them in the comments down below, and let me know what your favorite book of October was. Give me just a second, we'll make lunch. You want to finish this video with me? Here, yep. Sit down or turn around. As always, if you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, as well as going down and hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you never miss any of my content. So until next time, bye!